Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to give you an update on our Rain Country property right down the road from where I am standing right now. So this is our shy 1/3 acre corner lot in a neighborhood. And this is actually where we grow all of our food that we grow. And then down on the other piece, we do forage for some food, but I want to give you an update. We just happened into that property back, I think it was 2019, and a lot of people assumed we were going to move on to it and make a big homestead out of it. Well, at the time we bought it, we weren't really sure what we were going to do with it. We just bought it because we really liked it, and we'd been hunting for property, and it was a perfect place to start. So the piece down the road is actually a shy acre. And then we have another piece that we purchased this last year that is out of town quite a ways, and it is 6 acres. And so we're slowly kind of working on that one. It's a little harder because it's so much farther away. But today's going to be about what I call the Rain Country Retreat. And when we bought it, it had this little cabin on it. It's just a tiny little cabin, and we've actually used it a couple of times. We had family that, when we had campouts out there, that actually stayed in it. And we sometimes sit out there and have lunch. So first, let me go ahead and start with a couple of images of what it looked like when we first bought it. So here's a picture where you can see the cabin and then the hangar and what everything looked like. There was no driveway, there was nothing there. It was just the hangar and the little cabin, and it was all grass. And it was nice. We really liked that. But because of how we started morphing it through the past couple of years and figuring out what it was going to become to us, Patrick did put in, lay some gravel down so we have kind of a little driveway, and then put in a circle drive all the way around the cabin and to the back, because behind the cabin, as you'll see in some of these clips and photos, is where we got our the larger shipping container, the 20-foot one, where Patrick's going to store his dry lumber, and then you can see some logs and other stuff back there, and his mill. So anyway, that's one of the purposes, is for a place for him to store the wood that we use both for firewood and for lumber, to have a place to mill up the logs, and then also to store our heavy equipment, because we have a lot of heavy equipment. Some of it was purchased many years ago. When Patrick first purchased some of the heavy equipment, like our original dump truck and our equipment trailer and the backhoe, and that was so we could have it on hand when we finally bought some property so we can work it ourselves. And we've since added to that another dump truck and an excavator, so we can be able to do all kinds of stuff, especially for the property outside of town. Because of where it's at, we needed a truck that was bigger, that we could carry more gravel up there at a time, and also could handle the steep roads that he has to take the truck up, because it's all just gravel. So we needed a good truck that could handle it, something heavy. So because we're running out of space here, that gives us a place where he can store some of that stuff, the dozer and various other things we've acquired since. Because of the shipping container and our box truck, which is basically a mobile shop for Patrick, and then some of the other equipment Patrick has, it makes it an extended shop from here. He has a shop right here that's built right next to the house. It's a good sized shop, and he does a lot of his work here, but that also ends up being an extended shop where he can do some other types of work out there. And so he has various generators. Now that property out there is totally off grid. There's no running water or electricity to the place, but we do have generators that we can run various things as we need to out there. So then the other main thing that we use that property for is also for family gatherings, and we're going to be having one here shortly. Both years that our sons got married, that property was perfect for it, because it's just down the road where our family could camp out there. We could set up a Santa can there, and then if they wanted to shower, they just come back to the house here to take a shower. But it gave them plenty of space to hang out, let the kids play, and it's just been perfect. And we have a net out there for volleyball and badminton, and then we have horseshoes. We have 2 barbecuers out there, and we also have a fire pit on the lower section of the lot that we can cook on as well, and just sit around and just really enjoy some good quality time with family and friends. So the reason we've been out there the past couple of days, Patrick has to go out there a lot because he has a lot of work that he does out there. Some of it's just improving the property as he goes, some of it's just working on other projects. But I had to go out there 2 days in a row because he mowed the grass, and when he mows the grass, we go out there, I rake it all up, and usually both of us will put it into the back of the truck and then bring that back, because it becomes a mulch layer for our gardens back here. I know it's not going to be the best for everyone, but for here, they're perfect for so many areas of our garden. And I'll talk about that in a separate video. But anyway, so we get a lot of grass clippings out there because we don't have a lot of grass here to mow anymore, because most of our area here is a garden or storage or greenhouse or shop or chicken coop and yard and so on and so forth. So we don't have a whole lot of space left here for that kind of stuff, for just grass. So that's why we gather grass from out there. It needs to be mowed anyway, and so we just gather it up, bring it home in the truck, and I put it where I need to put it. Now, one more thing I wanted to mention about that piece of property, the other purpose for it is it's a great place for us to forage other things. So we can get horsetail down there. I have yet to forage that, but I can get that down there. We can get salmon berries. I did a video a couple years ago on salmon berries, and even one just on making jam with them, because they're not my favorite berry, but you can make it into a pretty tasty jam if you combine it with other things like rhubarb, for instance. And also the spruce tips. That's where I got the spruce tips this past year, and I'll go ahead and link down below to the video I did on those. There's a couple of real big spruce trees right at the corner of the property there, so I can get all the spruce tips I need right there. And next year I plan on getting lots more than I did this year. In the past year, there's been a lot more changes than just the circle driveway. One of the things that happened was, I can't remember if it was fall or winter, but several months ago, we had a lot of flooding here in this town. Even though we get an average of 120 inches of rain per year, this was excessive. More than, I don't think we've had flooding like this in probably 100 years. And so what happened was, our property is actually on a part of the creek, and the creek is normally only about this deep on the section where it goes through our property. So the way the property is, we have an upper section, that's the part you see that gets all the sun, then we have the lower section where all the alder trees are. People mistakenly think those are birch. There's very few birch trees around here. We have lots of alder though, and it looks very much like birch. So we got all those alder trees down there, so it stays very shaded, and we do like that for various things. Well, then you got to go typically at least another 10 feet down to get to where the creek itself. And what happened was the flooding, it was so bad, the creek actually rose clear up to that lower lot. And here I'll put a clip that Patrick took last year during that, and it carried with it a whole bunch of silt that settled in a couple of different places of the property. And one of them was, it's a small area, it's not too bad. The other was this big area, it was just this beautiful grassy area, and now it's nothing but a big silt pit. But that's going to end up being a benefit. So the good thing was, you could see where the grass is starting to actually grow over the silt. And what that did was, that property, that section there actually needed some leveling. So with all that silt in there, it actually leveled out that property. And then here's a little clip I took yesterday where I took a stick and stuck it down into the silt, and this was the shallow part, and you can see how far that stick went down. It was at least 12 inches thick of silt, and that again was the shallow part. I didn't go out into the very center because it's still so very soft that you sink into it and you can lose your shoe in it. It's only just recently no longer has standing water on top of it. That water stood on there for months and months, and this was the first time I went out there and saw no standing water on top of the silt. So eventually that grass will grow and fill in, and then we'll have a nice level lot down there. So it'll actually be a good thing once that grows back in. It just doesn't look very pretty right now. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about some future use that we might implement. Because of our other piece of property, we're still in question about what exactly we want to do with this piece here. Sometimes we still consider building a bigger cabin on it. We might just save that for out at that other piece outside of town, because that's going to be more of our bug out location as if need be. But we may still look at extending our garden other than the wild stuff. So right now, the way it is there's certain area that we're just no longer mowing, and the blackberries, because they grow wild out here, are starting to grow up in there. So we're just going to leave the blackberries, because right on the property there hasn't been a lot of blackberries. We have a lot of salmon berries. But we're going to let those blackberries kind of fill in, so we have a nice area where we can go pick blackberries right there. And then we're still thinking about possibly putting in a couple of fruit trees out there, a couple more, because the old apple trees that are out there, they're so old and the apples are terrible. They have an awful taste. They get a lot of apples, but they're nasty. They're not any good. And I think it's just because the trees are just so old and they're just not in good shape. So we might take those out and put in some new fruit trees out there. And possibly down the road, it might be something we might consider trying to find a wheat that grows really well here. And then instead of using this area for corn, because it's not a huge area, I do have some corn growing out here, but we might eventually do that out there and take a section of the upper area and just turn that into a section for corn and wheat. Now, some of you saw where we got a really big greenhouse, but right now we really don't have space for it out there. Some people have asked about what we're going to do with it. Well, since we've changed our mind in how we're laid out what we're doing with that piece of property, we don't have room for the greenhouse. We could still put a greenhouse, just not that one we got because it's just really big. But for now, it is a great extended area. It's a place that we can just get away from here. So yesterday, not only did I go rake up some grass, I took several hours and just hung out in the cool shade. We actually have a little table and chairs that we got for free when Patrick went to a garage sale to pick up a couple of tanks, for water storage. And they just gave us a couple of these stone tables and some chairs. And so one of the smaller table we got sitting back there by one of our storage containers. And it's a nice little view of one of the shady parts of the property. And we just sat there, and I had brought out a couple of bottles of water, and we sat there and talked, just enjoyed some relaxing time in the shade, which I really needed. And before I had to come back to the house and get back to work. I mean, I love it here, but this place is 100% a workplace. So it's where I shoot my YouTube videos. It's where I make product. We make product for the stores. Where I package and ship stuff off. It's where I deal with my YouTube channel and comments and uploading and editing. And in fact, this area, because I used to teach dance and martial arts, and so the room, I have a video on that I'll link to down below. We have that big room that we built on the side of the house there that used to be my dance studio and martial arts studio, and since then has been converted into a storage area for our boxes and stuff for packaging and a game room. And so but ever since we've had this place, it has been a place of business, not just a home. So it is nice having that extended piece of property where I can just get away from the business end of things and just enjoy some quiet time, especially this time of the year when it's beautiful down there. Now, the creek, by the way, is surprisingly still higher than normal. It's almost back to normal, but for this time of the year, it's usually more shallow than that, where Cody can actually, there's some shallow enough places where Cody can just kind of skip right across to the other side. But it's still pretty deep. It's at least for this time of the year. So we'll see. Maybe in August it'll be more shallow. Maybe I'll do another update on some of that stuff down the road, or at least in this and that video. But anyway, this was the main video I wanted to do for this year, because I don't think I ever did one last year on what was going on out there at that piece of property. And there have been changes, and a lot of it's just trying to make the decisions of what we think is going to be best, or what we want to do. So as far as setting that up as a second home per se, that's probably not going to be the choice for us necessarily, because it's just right down the road and it's still within city limits. If we want a getaway spot, that's going to have to be the area that's outside of town that we may do a tour of someday. But all we've got on it so far is a gravel driveway. Patrick did that. He did a video on that I can link to in the description box down below, so you can get a little bit of view of what that looks like. But anyway, so maybe down the road we'll do more information on that. So anyway, that's the update on the Rain Country Retreat that's just down the road from us. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And those who have been wondering what's been going on, well, that's it. And we're still looking at maybe adding more to it as we go. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.